Bates Motel is sort of like this modern reimagining prequel to the original Psycho movie that follows Norman Bates in his formative years as a teenager, and also his weird relationship with his mother that has some strange implications. And if you've seen the original Psycho, then you already know where the relationship with his mother is going and how it's going to influence him later on in life. However, this is more about the journey, I would say, than where things eventually end up with the Psycho movie. And from where I'm at in the story, I'm not entirely sure if that's where this is going to end up too. Things could change because, like I said, it feels kind of like a reimagining as well as like a prequel to the original movie. Bates Motel was something I'd heard about a lot before, but I never actually got the chance, or I never really got around to watching it until just recently when I saw that this was on Netflix. And I'd been meaning to watch it, so I was like, one night I was like, what the hell, I'll give it a try, and I watched the first episode, and I was pretty much immediately hooked. I liked the chemistry between Norman and his mother, and I thought the actor that was playing the younger Norman was actually really good, and the actress that plays Norman's mother, Norma Vera Farmiga, is a really good actress and portrayed her role very well. And the first episode is something that just immediately hooks you. Norman's father dies under mysterious circumstances, and both Norma and Norman move to this small, like, coastal town and decide to open up a motel, and basically replace this motel that was there before they moved there and opened up what would eventually become the Bates Motel. And this kind of becomes a pretty important plot point really early on, as the former owner Keith Summers comes in and threatens Norma and Norman and says, if they don't basically pack their shit and get out, bad things are going to happen. Well, he doesn't outright say this, but he heavily implies it. And of course, later on, we see that, I will kind of spoil some things in the first episode. He assaults Norma, and they kill him in self-defense. They hide the body, and this is a plot point that will, of course, come up throughout the first season, as there's an ongoing investigation into the disappearance of Keith Summers. And in this way, we're introduced to the police force, some of the corrupt police officers, and how some things kind of work in this town. Actually, it's funny because the town that Norman Bates and Norma end up moving to ends up being a little bit more interesting than Norman himself becoming eventually becoming this crazy psychotic murderer. We see signs of him basically turning into that in this season, but it's really not as focused on as I thought it would be. It's actually more of the focus is given to the town and just all these different mysteries that are in this town, and how the people that live in this town are sort of complicit in some of these crimes that are happening around them. The police force are corrupt, and they cover up some of the things that happen in the town, and we kind of learn that as we go as season 1 progresses. There's also a character that gets introduced pretty early on in the show called Dylan, and he is basically Norman's half-brother, and he's been estranged from Norma for a while, and he has kind of this kind of a grudge against her because his father was the one who died in the beginning of the series was his father, so he's always held this grudge against Norma for that, because he believes that she was responsible for his father's death and basically just wanted his money. And he's a really interesting character. He's actually probably the most relatable character in the show, as Norman is really portrayed as a bit of an eccentric with some mental issues, and those mental issues become much more, I would say, pronounced, and definitely much more of a concerning thing as we learn more about him at the end of the season. However, Dylan is pretty much, I would say Dylan is like the everyman character, because he just sort of represents, like, you can easily just put yourself in his shoes. He's concerned about Norman, he's concerned about his brother and how close he is with Norma, and how Norma has been influencing him, and he's basically just trying to be the good guy. He's trying to take Norman out of this environment that he believes is kind of like abusive and not good for him in the long run. So he's trying to basically take him away and have him move in with him, and he gets, a job that's not really, of course, a regular job. It's kind of a sort of maybe not illegal job where he's guarding a pot field, but it's sort of like he's sort of portrayed as this guy who is pretty much going to do whatever it takes to make money he needs to, basically the money he needs to live. So you can't really fault him too much, but for the most part, he's a pretty relatable character. He's like the most relatable character in the whole show. And of course, throughout the mentioning one of the in regards to the mystery aspect of the show that I mentioned before, throughout this season, there's just this building mystery about this, what Norman finds out about, like, what was happening at the motel before him and his mother moved in, and it is possibly connected to some kind of Asian woman, like, sex trade that some of certain characters within the police force in the town might have been involved with. And him and this girl, one of his classmates, decide to try to uncover the truth behind this mystery, and it's a plot point that kind of continues to build throughout the season. And it also has connections with Keith Summers, who's dead, and it turns out that Keith Summers also had other connections with other people who were also involved in this sort of this sex trade business, and also drug trafficking and all this other stuff that was going on with Keith Summers. It all kind of goes back to him. And I kind of like that about the show, because it's sort of it's not just the fact that they're trying to keep his murder under wraps, but they also find that they're not the only ones who are really, criminals and all this. Basically, everybody's a criminal, and everybody's just trying to cover up this big, this big conspiracy that was happening. There were this big illegal operation they had going on. And I really like that about the show. Like, it was probably the most interesting aspect of it. Now, I did really like Norman's slow descent into what I assume is going to be eventual just total madness, and he's going to become a crazy person, which, as the kind of person he becomes in Psycho. But season 1, and I kind of understand why it didn't, but it really didn't focus so much on that. And I think Norman's plot lines in this season were decent at some points, and then were also a little bit weak. One of the things that I really just did, kind of annoyed me in this season, but I kind of understand why, it was kind of a thing, because of course he's a teenager and he's hormonal and all this other stuff. One thing I just didn't really understand, he has this natural ability to just attract every woman on the planet, including his teacher. It seems like his teacher, like, all of these women wanted to fuck him, at least at first. Like, at first it seemed that way, and then, like, him and this one girl end up hooking up, and the other girls don't really seem so interested in him anymore. And then after him and this girl hook up, he just starts just having this crazy obsession with her. And maybe this is something about his character that I'm assuming is not there for just no reason. I'm assuming it's probably going to be built upon in the other seasons, as well as him just being kind of this obsessive sort of creepy stalker. But at the same time, I would say that's mostly normal for him to have this sort of reaction, because we see him basically lose his virginity in this season to this girl, and after that he just feels like they're in this relationship and they're in love, when all it was just a hookup. And of course, this other girl who's his classmate, he's been uncovering this mystery with and just hanging around, of course has feelings for him, and she's jealous. And it also kind of feels sort of like a plot from a CW show. Like, I would say that's probably one of the weaker parts of this season, and you might like it and you might not like it. I'm sort of in between, where I actually some things about it were annoying, of like how he was just completely obsessing over this girl, and how he just completely seemed to be ignoring this other girl who was trying to hang around him and just being a dick to her. But at the same time, it was understandable, considering he's a teenager and he lets his other head, so to speak, just do the thinking for him. So yeah, that's an aspect of his character that kind of gets touched upon in this season, and it can be annoying at times, because whenever it goes into this plot of him trying, hoping to hear back from this girl and never hearing anything. But at the same time, it's kind of relatable, because you're just, I'm sure most guys at least understand how that can feel, myself included. So yeah, I think it was annoying, but at the same time kind of necessary, because he is a teenager, and teenagers, of course, go through these things. It made him feel a little bit more human, and that's one thing this show definitely does. It humanizes the guy. It makes him feel like just a normal, if not a kind of eccentric guy, you know, that is just maybe into some weird stuff and has some weird thoughts, and has some legitimate mental issues that, for various different reasons, aren't being addressed. But for the most part, he feels like he's a normal guy, and might just be a normal guy if maybe he had gotten the help he needs. And maybe that's sort of going to be the tragedy of the series, is this guy would be normal if not for his mother, who is also comes off as normal, but also is very, very overprotective of him, to the point where she doesn't want him hanging around certain girls. She is just always on him, always just hanging around him. And I think that sets things up really well for the kind of person he's going to become, and his eventual obsession with her, and, you know, in the movie. So I think that was good, and I think the actress, of course, that portrays her does a fantastic job. All the actors in this do like a really good job. I didn't have any problem with the acting in this. But yeah, the first season of this was really good. It ends in a pretty crazy way, not a climactic way, really. I was a little bit disappointed at first, but then there was the last ending shot, and I'm like, I knew he was going to, like, I thought he was going to do what he does at the end of this season at first, and then when I saw he did it, I'm like, oh shit. So that, you know, because I'm just like, I was thinking after seeing this episode, I'm like, where could they go from here in season 2? And then I see that last shot, and I'm like, oh, okay, I see where they're gonna go now. But then again, it's like, there are some mysteries in this first season that do get wrapped up pretty well, so I don't really know where else they could go with the second season. I guess it'll be interesting to see what other plot points get brought up in seasons 2 through 5. I do hear the show does sort of decline in quality a bit in season 5, but I guess I'll just have to see for myself. So far, it's a really great show, and I would really recommend everybody like watch it, especially if you're a fan of the original Psycho movie. I honestly, I'll be honest with you guys, I've never actually seen the original Psycho. I've been meaning to, and I know the spoilers, and I know what happens in it, but I've never actually seen the movie. So that's something I definitely need to do. But Bates Motel has really encouraged me to just go and actually watch the original movie, because I really want to do that now. But I also just, if anything, want to watch more of the show. So I felt like I would just give my thoughts about season 1. Really strong start for this show. Really fantastic. Just really strong start for the show. Norman as a character is great. He has his weak moments, but you know, he has certain things I don't like about him as a character. But I didn't think he'd be perfect, but I think he's, for the most part, he's great as a character. I think, all the characters in the show I actually really like, aside from some of the, maybe some of the police officer characters. Like, there is this one guy who you're really not gonna like at first. I think his name's Romero. He comes off as a total dick at first, but then you start to understand like his perspective because of the town itself and some of the things that other people he knows are involved with, and he seems to really understand like what's going on here. And it seems like he has this been there, kind of done that attitude. Like he's just kind of he's this no nonsense type of character. So that, that's kind of what you have to understand about his character, and you really just start to maybe sort of understand things a little bit more from his perspective as the first season goes on, because he's one of those characters you're really going to hate at first, but then he kind of grows on you as the series progresses, or at least as season 1 progresses. So yeah, I don't know. Should I give this one a rating? I guess I should. Okay, so season 1 of Bates Motel. Like I said, there are some plot points that do get a little bit annoying, specifically having to do with like teen drama related things that people might not like. So in light of that, I was going to give this a higher score. I still think this is a pretty high score though. I'm gonna have to give this an 8 out of 5, or 8 out of 5. That's a great scoring system there. 8 out of 5. 8 out of 10. I think this was like I said, a really strong start for the show, and I really am interested to see where it goes from here. And yeah, let me know what you guys think of this show, if you've actually seen it already, or if you've have an interest in seeing it, let me know. I think this is definitely a really good show for just in general. Like, it doesn't matter if you're a fan of the movie or if you like horror related things or anything like that. It's I think you'll find something to like here, regardless of what kind of genres you're really into. But yeah, so I guess this was a little bit different from what I usually do, which I usually review movies. I feel like I think I have reviewed shows before. I'm not sure. Have I reviewed shows? But I honestly can't remember. If not, this will be the first time I've reviewed a show. But again, I guess until next time, I will see you all later.